Hey, thank you so much for joining us at our Crosspoint Church podcast. Now, if you're new to our podcast or maybe new to our church in general, we're just a bunch of messed up people who don't have it all together, running after a heavenly leader who loves us and meets us right where we are. We hope this message encourages you, builds your faith, and strengthens your confidence as you continue down this journey of what it means to know and follow Jesus. Enjoy this message.
There's so much more that we're longing for in this world. I love that line because I think many of us are in that place, and that's what we're actually going to be talking about today. A lot of us, we're looking for purpose, and there's all kinds of messaging in our culture that says, hey, here's how you get it. Look within, find it within yourself, you do you. And a lot of times it leads us to places that just don't take us to where we're wanting to go. So welcome to Crosspoint. Really excited to see you this weekend. My name's Curt. If you're here for the first time, excited to have you with us. This is a great weekend to be here. I think as we dig into this, there's something in this for all of us this weekend, regardless of where we are on our spiritual journey. And let's make some noise for those online with us this weekend. Really excited to have you join us across our Sea-State Nation and world, and that you took a little time to just spend with us here at Crosspoint. Now, one of the fun parts of this series is when we do fun things like this, I get all kinds of texts that people are like, hey, you could use this. And so I got something from my friend Kristen this week that I think really aligns. It says this, OMG, guys, that's not what I said. I think that's what Jesus actually is really saying sometimes when with all these phrases that we think are him but really aren't. And so we're going to dig into another one of those this weekend. But before we do that, we're going to play a little game. You guys cool to play this game, Jesus or Cap? You guys ready for this? All right, here we go. So we did this last weekend. Here's how it goes. I'm going to give you a phrase, and if you think it's Jesus, you just yell out Jesus. You can yell out as loud as you can, Jesus. If you think it's not Jesus, yell Cap. And again, if you're like under 35, you're like, what in the world's Cap? Well, Cap means lie. It's like Cap, bro. Like, I'm not lying, or I am lying, all right? Or no Cap, I'm not lying. So Cap if you think it's false, Jesus if you think it's true. You guys ready? All right, I'm going to give you a softball to start off, all right? Here we go. Jesus or Cap? May the force be with you. Yeah, I'm glad. You know who that is? That's this guy right here.
May the force be with you.
Yeah, so that's an easy one, right? Though Jesus could have said that. Now, here's the next one. Cleanliness is next to godliness. Cap or Jesus? All right, look at you. Yeah, that was Mama's Bible right there. Mama said that. That's Cap. All right, here's the next one. The truth will set you free. Jesus? Oh, look at you guys. You know the words of Jesus. Way to go. Right on. All right, here's the next one. RESPECT, find out what it means to me. Jesus or Cap? Okay, yeah, that's Cap, but that's the queen of soul, not the king of soul. That'd be Jesus. That's the queen of soul right there, Aretha Franklin. All right, how about this one? On Wednesdays, we wear pink. Jesus or Cap? You guys, you know who that is? That's this right here.
We want to invite you to have lunch with us every day for the rest of the week.
Oh, it's okay. Coolness. So we'll see you tomorrow.
On Wednesdays, we wear pink.
Yeah, that's Mean Girls right there. I don't know why we would think that's Jesus, but nonetheless. All right, here a couple more. Live, laugh, love. Jesus or Cap? Yeah, look at you guys. You know who said that? That's Target right there. Target. All right, the spotted dog. All right, not Jesus. He could have said that. Last phrase. You do you. Jesus or Cap? Yeah, Cap. All right, yeah, look, give yourselves a hand. Man, way to go. Listen, we're going to dig into this one tonight, this weekend, because Jesus never said that. It's something he could have said. And we were like, well, that's great. Our American ears hear these things. And we're like, well, I think Jesus would want that. He'd be for that. And even if you're not a Christian, which if you're not a Christian and you're here and you're kind of exploring or you're curious, we're really excited you're here. This is a place for you to be able to do that. But even if you're not a Christian, like people in our culture that aren't Christians are generally positive about Jesus. Like even Gandhi even said one day, hey, I like your Christ. I do not like your Christians. Your Christians are so unlike your Christ, which I get that. Sometimes the Christians get in the way of actually seeing who Jesus is. But I think most of us in the world are like, well, Jesus, generally, we're pretty cool with him. And so when you hear things like find your purpose within or follow your dreams or you do you, it's natural to say, well, our American ears and our self-focus in our culture today goes, well, wouldn't Jesus be for that? I mean, wouldn't Jesus want me to find my purpose and want us to live out our dreams and help us do that? And he does. It's just that he never said that. In fact, we'll never actually find significant meaning and significant purpose if we go down that path. So we're going to be talking this weekend about purpose. And I know for some of us, you're going, oh, cool, man, I'm going to figure out what my what is. And maybe I'm going to leave here with a greater sense of what I'm like supposed to be doing, like my purpose. And what is a great question. In fact, we've done an entire series on what. So that's a good question, but it's not the most important question. There's a way more important question that we're actually going to look at this weekend. And if you're in a junior high or senior high or maybe even early parts of college, you get inundated with the what question, right? Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to go to trade school? Are you going to get a job? Are you going to go to college? And if you're getting a job, it's like, what are you going to do for your job? And if you're going to college, it's like, what are you going to study? And some of you, it's like you're expected to have it all figured out by the time you're like 18. Like sometimes I'm like in my 50s, I'm still trying to figure it out sometimes. So the what's a big deal, and I want us to take a look at one of America's favorite comedians, Nate Bargatze. He talks a bit about the what and what he would actually do, the what's he would do if he actually had to change. So let's hear from him right here.
Look, I love doing stand-up comedy. I love it. And the job I had, the last serious job, the job I will go back to when all this falls apart, I was a water meter reader. Thank you. This job the title was the description of what you do. People would ask, I'm a water meter reader. Yeah, what's that? Let me tell you what it is, all right? We're gonna read water meters. It's 100% of the job. So it's 2001. Obviously, 9/11 happens. If you're old enough, you remember when 9/11 happened, the whole country got very scared that there's going to be more attacks. Well, we did as well in Wilson County. We figured they just went to New York, obvious next stop, Mount Juliet, Tennessee. And they are going to poison our town's water. So they got all of us water meter readers to guard the water tanks. I really did this. I stood just in a dark field, alone, waiting for the Taliban to show up. They gave us a lantern that does nothing but shows your body as you hold it up. I can't see 2 feet in front of me. If someone's got a gun, they're like, just shoot at the only light in that field. They're gonna put it over my heart to see. I'm like, what's going on? I mean, I think, like, to this day, I always say, what did they want us to do? Call the Mount Juliet police. Osama is here. He got past our lanterns. He's in the water tank. He knew how to open that. We were surprised by that, but he knew what he was doing.
Oh, that's a pretty important what, right? So what is important, but there's a more important question, in fact, and even if you're not in high school or college, and it's beyond the what, it's the why. Because see, the why is what we actually take into our what, and that's what we're going to take into our future. And it doesn't matter what you do. There's not going to be a significance and a sense of like really have an impact. It just in the what, it really comes down to the why. It's a much more important question. In fact, I would even argue that in our culture today, for many of us in our American culture, we have a deficient why. Not sufficient, but a deficient why, meaning if you have a deficient why, there's like a level of significance and impact and meaning that you're probably longing for. Kind of like that song said, like I was meant for something more, I can't seem to get a hold of it. And when you're deficient, I mean, in our American culture, we're just so individualistic. And I think we're more so this way than we ever have been in the history of our country. We're self-focused. We're all about self. We elevate self. It's like you do you, find your purpose within, whatever you want to do. Like you go do that. All right, it's about us, what I want to do. And you know, that sounds great. I mean, it's like not like anybody wants to stand in the way of you having your freedom to do whatever you want to do. It's just that I think is what we're going to see today is that Jesus came to actually bring life that really is life. And the self-focus actually leads to a pretty small life. And because when self is at the center, that's not really leading to the kind of impact and the meaning that we ultimately want to have. Which I think is why in our American culture, you know, we're wealthier than we've ever been. We have more freedom perhaps than we've ever had. And if this was just an experiment and it worked, then, you know, elevating self and making ourselves the center of everything, like that would lead to a lot of fulfillment and meaning, right? Like America would be the most fulfilling, meaningful place in the world, but unfortunately it's not. In fact, there's a lot of studies being done right now. In fact, one professor, there's a professor at Harvard, he wrote a book called The Meaning of Your Life. He's been doing about an 8-year, 10-year study, and he's been asking questions. And one of the questions he's been asking teenagers specifically over the last 8 years is, does your life feel meaningless, you know, in terms of like most of the time? And over the last 8 years, 28 years ago and right now, the answer to that question has gone up double, where students have been saying yes 2 times more than they did 8 years ago. And of course, the question is, well, why is that happening? It's like we're at this crisis, this place where there's a crisis of connection, a crisis of meaning. And so again, the good news is Jesus actually came to bring meaning. And yet the thing that I think we're going to discover is the places that we're often looking for it, that's not where we find it. So Jesus, when he came to the planet, he actually told us his why. In fact, I want us to look at something he said in the Gospel of John, because this is where he tells us why he came. He said, I have come that they, meaning us, you all, me, that they have life and have it to the full. So like he came to bring meaning and to bring significance. And the good news is your life actually can have that, and you can actually find it. And so today, we're going to kind of unpack where we find this and see how we actually step into this. Now, it's a bit counterintuitive because it's the last place that Americans think they're actually going to find it. Now when I say American, it's not like I'm not one. I'm included in that. Like I'm a part of this seeking and longing for this. It's just that oftentimes where we find it, it's not really where we think it's going to be. And so Jesus, as we look at him, he's actually going to point us in a different direction. So we're going to look at the Gospel of Luke today, chapter 9. This is where we find Jesus talking about some of this. And we're going to just dive in. And he says something really amazing as he gets started here. It says, then he said to them all, which that's not the amazing part, but he's talking to all these people. He's got, thousands of people following him. He's pretty popular. He's kind of the thing. People are like, have you met the dude? Every time we listen to him, like, it's like life being breathed into us. And so people are flocking to him. He says, whoever wants to be my disciple. Now I want to stop right there, because if we were in the crowd 2,000 years ago, this would be shocking to us to hear this. Because to be a disciple under a rabbi like Jesus, I mean, this dude was popular, he was well known. Like, you would be top tier right here. This would be like today, if you're like, my kid's going to Harvard or MIT, or they're interning at Google. Like, you're waiting for the question to be asked, like, hey, what's your kid doing? You're like, well, can I tell you what they're doing? They're interning at Google. Like, you'd be waiting for that. Only the best of the best get to do that. And so Jesus looks at the crowd right here and he says, hey, whoever wants to, you can. Like, meaning he opens it up to everybody. Right? It's not just the best of the best. It's like everybody, whoever wants. Like, the bar of entry was really, really low. I mean, it's about as low as it can go. Now, here at Crosspoint, every now and then somebody will ask the question, especially somebody that's newer, they'll say something like, well, what does it look like to be a member like of this church? Because, some churches, have a formal membership and all that, which is cool. I mean, that's totally good if they want to do that. We don't have that. We made a different choice. Jesus' bar of entry is whoever wants to. All right, and so here at Crosspoint, we're kind of in the same boat. I mean, if you want to be a Crosspointer, let me just tell you, like, you're here, you're in, all right? So like, hey, if you want that, everybody's in. You're a Crosspointer right now, and we're better because you're here. All right, now, there are some steps once we become a part of this that God is probably going to want you to take in terms of growing and being fully engaged. Meaning for some of us, your first step might just be, like, you just need a healing. Like, maybe you've kind of been beat up in life, or you've been away from God for a while, or maybe you've never really known God, and you're like, man, I'm looking to see if there's something that can change or bring some healing or some restoring to my life, and you may just need some time. I always say to people, if you're new, just try us out for 5 or 6 weeks and just see if something begins to connect. For others, you might, need to begin to serve. Maybe you want to become one of those SWAT serve team members and just do 2 serves in 1 month and fill some gaps this summer. Maybe you need to get in a group. We got a brand new group starting this summer. One of them's going to be happening right after our Thursday service. Just for everybody, it's like, hey, I want to be connected during the summertime. Your next step might be to invite someone. Maybe you got somebody that's like, man, I really think this could help them. And so that's the next step for you. Or maybe it's to give, to fuel the mission. Many of us have been doing that over the last number of weeks, to this initiative over the next 3 years. And so God will invite us to take next steps, but the bar of entry is like, well, whoever wants to. Jesus is looking at the crowd. He says, hey, whoever wants to be my disciple can be. And here's what that means. It actually means quite a bit, and there's some commitment to it. And so let's look at what he says next. He says, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross daily, and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, and who loses their life for me will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world and yet lose or forfeit their very soul? And so Jesus, he looks out at the crowd and he says, hey, whoever wants to be my disciple can be. All right, but here's what it looks like. Here's what it means to follow. And so this is really important. He's actually showing us what it means to follow him, to have relationship with him. And his invitation always has been, hey, would you just follow me? Now, follow, we kind of use this pretty flippantly, right? Like, so we might say, hey, I'm going to follow somebody on social media. Some of you follow me on social media. Actually, some of you have unfollowed me on social media. You're like, dude's lame. He never posts anything, which is true. I don't really do a lot personally on social media. All right, but a lot of times it's like, am I interested in them? And I'm not interested in them. That's not what Jesus is talking about right here. What he's talking about with following is this is an all-encompassing decision where I say, okay, this is what I want my life to be about. I'm not going to follow my heart. I'm not going to follow another person or a thing. I'm actually going to begin to follow with my life the person of Jesus. So what does that mean? What does it look like to follow Jesus? Well, he gives us 3 leads right here, 3 commands that I want us to kind of unpack here. He says, deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow me. He says, deny self, pick up your cross, and follow me. This is what it means to be a disciple of Jesus right here. He says, I'm going to give you 3 actions, and if you want to know what it is, this is it right here. Deny yourself, pick up your cross, and simply follow me. So let's dig into this. What does this mean? Well, 2,000 years ago, people, again, that would have heard this or read this, they would have heard it and interpreted it very differently. Because see, when we read this in English, right, all these phrases seem to be the same, right? Like, but in the Greek, 2,000 years ago, they would have been saying this in the Greek, that the first 2 phrases are different than the third one because they're different tenses. Now, if you remember back to English class, all right, if some of you, that's a long ways back, but think back to tenses in English class. Remember, like, parsing sentences? Some of you are getting tense right now. You're like, I'm feeling pretty tense. Thinking back to English class. Like, it's making me tense right now, all right? So remember, there was like past tense, present tense, future tense. Well, in Greek, there's way more tenses than that. And so one of them is actually called aorist command. It's one of the tenses. And honestly, I never thought I'd be actually talking about aorist command in a teaching, but here we go. So aorist command is like a one-time decision or action whose results continue on. And then there's present command, which is an ongoing daily decision or action. And so to illustrate this, I want to use some Twinkies here. You guys are like, whoa, what's up with the Twinkies right here, right? Anybody want a Twinkie? You guys want a Twinkie out there? Oh, yeah, okay, here we go. Let me do this, a few Twinkies. Just let me know if you want a Twinkie. All right, one way back there. Anybody over here? Twinkies? See, I'm going to miss you. Yeah, just, I'm going to throw a few more if you want them, just let me know as we go. So here's how I want you to think about this. I could give a command and say, hey, eat Twinkies. All right, and that could mean a lot of things. That could mean like, hey, eat Twinkies right now. Like, here you go. Like, eat a Twinkie. Go ahead and eat right now. So I could say that, like, just eat it. Aorist command would be like, eat the Twinkie and the results continue. So I can tell you, if I eat this Twinkie, the results will continue. So that Twinkie's going to stay with me. I'm going to gain weight. I'm going to have gastrointestinal issues because these have like a 10-year shelf life. I think they've been on the shelf for a while. They got all kinds of sugar. All right. And so, so they're going to go with me. I'm going to be like, well, I want to lose weight. Well, eating a Twinkie, the results are going to stay. All right. That's aorist command right there. All right. So it's eat Twinkies and the results continue. Or I could be saying, like, eat Twinkies. Like, that could be my mode of life right there. Hey, live, love, and eat Twinkies, right? Anybody want to eat a Twinkie? Anybody else? All right, here we go, right there. Yeah, so eat a Twinkie. And it's just like a motto for life, right? So, there's all these little nuances, but in the Greek, you would know, not just by the context, but by the tense, exactly what was being said. So the first two commands here, deny self and pick up your cross, these are Eris commands. It's like eat Twinkies, do it once, and then the results, continue on. All right? Like it's a one-time decision. It's a one-time point of action. Deny yourself, take up your cross. And so I'm going to make this decision, and then my life orientation is going to shift. It's going to begin to put me in a direction. But then this third phrase, follow, is a present command, meaning it's like, hey, eat Twinkies forever. Like keep doing this ongoing. You're going to do this every single day. All right? And the first two actually set up and lead to the third phrase, follow me. So follow me, as we think about this is how you live out your life continually. Like it's not a one-time thing, it's an everyday thing. And it's basically we go, okay, well, I've made that one-time change in direction. Now I have this new why. I have this new purpose because I shifted directions. I denied myself and I took up my cross. And now I'm going to daily follow. And so, when I have a new why, it's not about me anymore because, it's about something bigger than me. I'm going to deny myself and I'm going to take up my cross. I've made that decision and I'm going to follow. All right? I'm going to begin to daily live this out. So let's dig into this just a bit deeper. Let's explain each of these phrases. So deny self. Let's be honest. Listen, it is very un-American to deny self. Very un-American, right? Like we don't like to deny ourselves. We want to elevate ourselves. We want to pamper ourselves. We want to treat ourselves. I get it. We want to do all those things. But deny self? You're like, well, seriously, why would I do that? I don't have to do that. Like basically, I want my life to be about the things that I want. And so denying self means I'm going to make my life about others. In fact, to go even further, I'm going to make my life about God. I'm going to set aside my comfort and my preferences for something bigger. I'm going to deny self. All right, I'm going to not be self-driven. I'm going to be driven by something else. And you say, okay, well, what is that something else? Well, that something else is what Jesus says next. Take up your cross. Now, this would have been another moment where you and I hear that, but the way they would have heard it 2,000 years ago would be very, very different. Because see, you and I, we only really know one person who took up their cross, probably, right? Like Jesus. You're like, that's obviously Jesus. But see, back in first century, they would have seen this every day. Like, if they would have had a mass riot, then there would have been a mass execution by crucifixion right after that. So it would have been normal to see people picking up their cross because, part of that would be like they would literally have to take their cross and they would carry it to the point of execution. So you would see people going through the community to where they're going to be executed and people would see them along the way and they go, oh, wow, your life is over. Because it is. I mean, they're going to be executed. Like nobody signed up for that. It's a very terrible thing, horrible. Nobody would choose that. And then Jesus comes along and he says, hey, if you want to be my disciple, by the way, great, anybody can, all right? It's open to anybody, but just know it's a commitment. It means denying yourself and choosing to carry your cross. And even though nobody would have chose to carry their cross, Jesus goes, no, I want you to choose to do this because, see, I'm going to choose to take up my cross. And if you want to be like me, then I want you to choose to take up yours as well. Now, eventually, they would come to understand what Jesus really meant by this. This wasn't necessarily a punishment thing. What Jesus was talking about here was a purpose thing. Jesus was taking up his cross, not for the fun of it, but for the purpose of it. The purpose was he was going to save the world of their sin. He was going to save you and me from our sin. He was going to give us a pathway to a relationship with God. He died to become the penalty for your and my sin, right? To offer forgiveness as a gift. But his cross also put to death, meaning when Jesus rose out of that grave, he created an entirely new on-ramp through which you and I could relate to God. And so when Jesus says, take up your cross, he's basically saying, hey, my life's not about me. I'm gonna take up my cross. This is my way of participating in the divine mission. And so it's about Jesus inviting you and me to be engaged in the redeeming work that he's doing in the world. The saving, the restoring, the bringing light to places of darkness, the bringing hope to where there's no hopelessness, to helping people who feel like God is unattainable. I don't know that I could ever have a relationship with God. To go, oh my gosh, look at this. He's inviting me. I actually could be included. See, that's the why that he's actually inviting us to. And so it's a life of purpose. It's bigger than me, right? That's my why. Whether you choose it or not, he's offering you and I a much bigger why. To know Jesus, to become more like Jesus, to participate in his mission and his redeeming work. He says, this is actually your why when you begin to follow me. Now, he says if you do this, there's going to be a big trade-off. He says there's certain things you're going to get, but you're also going to lose something too. In fact, take a look at how he puts it. He says, for whoever wants to save their life will lose it. Whoever loses their life for me will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world and yet lose or forfeit their very soul? So Jesus talked about this in different ways. He said, hey, if you want to gain your life, you actually have to give it away. If you want to save your life, you actually have to lose it. It's like this upside down economy. He says winning is actually losing. It's actually going to the back of the line instead of fighting to be at the front. It's not about grasping for the next thing. It's about giving up. It's setting aside self for something bigger. And he says when you do this, you actually get something out of it. It's a life that is really life, and its impact that is incredibly meaningful. And see, I think that's actually what our soul craves. We just struggle because there's all these voices telling us that our self needs to be in the center. In fact, I think that's actually one of the challenges. You know, one of the voices every single day that we struggle with is these voices that tell us, man, if you want to be important, you want significance, then elevate yourself. All right, put yourself first. I mean, that's just what our culture says. But see, Jesus comes along, he says, oh, no, don't listen to that. He says, don't listen to those. Let me tell you the real truth about who you really are. And so I want you to listen to a song. The band's going to actually do a song for us in a moment here. And some of us actually need this right now. I really believe some of us actually need to be reminded of the truth about what Jesus really says about you. So let's lean in and listen to this. What if we just lived out of that truth right there? I mean, what if we just actually lived as if that was true? You know, I think what Jesus is trying to get us to is he's wanting to point you and I to live out of that kind of confidence to a life that actually matters. And see, there's always a decision point. I mean, there's a moment or a period of time, and some of us perhaps haven't made that decision. You know, maybe you've never made the decision to follow Jesus, to begin to trust him as your Savior, which if you're here today and that's you, man, we're so excited you're here. We're glad you're curious. You're leaning in if you're tuning in, and you're like, hey, I'm interested. I just haven't got there yet. Man, we are so glad you're here. But see, there's a moment where we come to the place where we decide, okay, you know, Jesus, I want to follow you. All right, there's a moment of clarity where it's like, okay, I want to be about that. I want to be about that kind of impact, have that kind of life, have that kind of significance. That's what I want my life to be about. In fact, for me, I remember when I came to that point of clarity. In fact, if you've made that decision, I want you to think about that moment when you came to that clarity. What did it feel like when you came to that? You know, for me, I was like 14. I was just getting ready to go into high school. And I grew up in going to church every weekend. I grew up in a home. My dad was a pastor, so I was like around this. But I just never come to the place where I said, hey, Jesus, I'm going to trust you with my life. And I was finding myself, you know, really struggling with purpose and like, gosh, there's got to be more to life than this. And I'm having fun and doing things, but I just feel like there's a deeper meaning that I'm missing. And that was about the time that I said, okay, Jesus, I'm gonna begin to follow you. I'm gonna make you my leader and my savior. And I'm really gonna be about you and your purposes. And that really became my why. Now, my what at that point was high school. Now, when I went to high school, I was a part of a youth group or something like CSM, Crosspoint Student Ministries, and we had a bunch of students, but only about 25% of my friends from our church actually went to my high school, and we kind of ran in different circles, because like I was an athlete, and that made me cool. I wasn't cool, just so you know. Like I was awkward, and I dressed awkward, and I was a big introvert, and I didn't really know how to talk to people, but because as an athlete, I got like included in the cool circle. And so I was like in a different circle, and I think the moment where I really began to realize my why coming out and God using me in a unique way was my sophomore year, when one of my good friends and teammates and co-captains and a couple of our teams was killed in an auto accident. And it just really created a lot of grief and struggle and heartbreak for our school, much like it has in our community over the last couple of years. We've lost students. And through that, I actually got invited to speak at the funeral of my friend Brad. And then after that, we had a memorial service at our school. And I got to ask, I don't know why, because I was a bad speaker. I really didn't do well in front of people, but they asked me to speak there. And then I got invited to come to this thing called Fellowship of Christian Athletes and talk a bit about my faith there. And I began to realize God was actually using me and my why with my unchurched friends. And they were asking me questions about the hope and why do I have that? And how do you get through seasons like this? And then, of course, when you get out of high school, everybody wants to know, okay, now what, right? Like, we've already talked about that. Everybody wants to know your what. Like, what's next? Like, what are you going to do? And, of course, I know some of you are like, well, see, Curt, it all worked out because now you're a pastor of a church. And, it all, like, fell into place, right? Because I am. If you don't know that, I'm a pastor of a church. It's another way of saying, like, I'm a professional Christian, right? Like, I get paid to be a Christian. Like, some of you don't get paid to be a Christian. Most of you are just amateurs, right? Like, you're an amateur, I'm a professional. Not really. It actually isn't that way. Though it's interesting because when I hire people on our team, one of the things I'll say to them, I'll say, hey, this is the only job in the world that I know of where we actually get paid to maintain our spiritual life. Like, there's no other job in the world, but we're responsible. Like, part of our work is to make sure we can stay, like, spiritually healthy. And the reason I'm telling you this story is it's easy to see our staff and people that are professionals as the ones that are really the ones doing it, and everyone else is amateurs. But guess what? That's not the way it is. That's not how God has it at all. Jesus actually has you in a what? Whether it's in your career, your workplace, your school, your neighborhood, wherever it is, God has you there for a reason. The New Testament calls that your assignment, not an accident. You're there by an assignment, right? He loves that place so much. He actually put you there strategically in that job, in that group of friends, in your neighborhood, right? Because God wants to do something in and through you in that place. And honestly, I'm a little jealous about that, if I'm honest. Because like people that are turned off to faith, that aren't people of faith, they can smell me coming like a mile away, right? Like when I interact with people that aren't people of faith, like we'll start talking and I can connect with them and, but at some point the question comes up, hey, what do you do, right? And I can do the whole like, well, I'm a part of spiritual coaching and I do, community change. And eventually they're going to go, well, what do you do though? Like it sounds like a pastor. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm a pastor. And all of a sudden they're like, oh man, well, nice to know you, shake your hand, good luck. I mean, God bless. I mean, whatever it is, it gets real awkward. They're like, okay, I'm out of here. All right, but not you. See, God has you in that setting. And what would it look like if in whatever what you're in right now, whether that's school, job, or whatever it is, in fact, my hope isn't that we walk out and go, oh man, I'm really into my what. All right, that's a different series. What if you had a fresh sense of why when you went into your what? Because if you do your what with a new why, which isn't always going to be easy, I'm telling you, you're going to begin to find significance and impact. And you're going to find that, man, life is really meaningful because you're joining Jesus in his mission and he's working through you. And to say, man, in the workplace, I want to represent Jesus well. In fact, the Apostle Paul calls this adorning the good news. He talks about adorning the good news, which is like that you live your life in a way that loves people and lifts others up, that gives people credit, where you serve people, you're others focused. All right, and if you just do that, people are going to start going, oh my gosh, dude, what's your deal? Like, why are you doing this? Why are you treating me this way? I don't deserve this. Or when people come to you because they're going through problems and yet they look at you and you're like, man, when you go through problems, you kind of have a non-anxious presence and it's like you have a hope that I just don't seem to have. Like, tell me about that. Peter actually talks about this. He talks about relating to people in such a way that at all times we're ready to share and talk about the hope that we have. To be ready for the conversation, to invite someone or to engage or to be aware that I'm doing the work of God of restoring broken places right in the what that I'm in my workplace, in my school, and saying, God, how can I help this place flourish? And if you go back to your what this week with a renewed sense of why, in fact, that's one of our next steps this week, and you're obsessed with it, and just before you go into that space every week, you go, okay, God, would you just tune my heart? Like, I know my why. Would you help me to see how you want me to use my why in this space to make it better, to represent you well? You do that every day. I'm telling you, man, life will be an adventure. Because Jesus will use you, and you're joining him in this redeeming work he's doing in the world, and you'll find meaning and significance and purpose. See, same happens here with this collection of people we call church. Right? Church isn't like some religious institution. Jesus didn't create this to be like, hey, I want to create an institution. No, the church is a movement built around a mission, a movement of people. And ecclesia, the word for first century church, means called out ones. It means we have the same calling, we have the same purpose. All right, there's something that unites us because we're so different. We come in here and we have different, experiences and backgrounds and different ways of thinking, and yet the thing that pulls us together that we have in common is a commitment to Jesus. Our basic life orientation is, hey, I'm going to set myself aside. I'm not going to lift self up. I'm going to live an others-focused life. And when you pull people together collectively and you go, okay, hey, let's not do church for us. Let's do it for the world. Let's do it for our community. Let's serve people. Let's be generous. Let's encourage people. Let's people see that they actually have a shot with God. I'm telling you, when you've got that going, it's pretty amazing what can happen. In fact, that just happened with many of us. We just came off a 5-week initiative, if you've been tracking with us for the last number of weeks, called Here to There. And many of us have invested in, said, hey, I want to be a part of helping that happen. And I'm telling you, we can continue to do more to the extent that more participate. But let me just tell you, man, the work that's coming out of here, I want to encourage us as a church. Like, you are making a difference in the world. You're making a difference. I mean, there are trajectories this week that are actually changed for eternity because of the work that you're doing, the difference you're making. I mean, just right here in this place, it's amazing. We're going to talk more about this next weekend in our celebration weekend. I've been a part of this for 19 years since we started this place. And I'm amazed what God has continued to do in me, but I'm also amazed at what God has done in my family. And honestly, there's seasons where I've honestly been pretty disillusioned with church. And God has actually used you to actually re-illusion me with this community known as Cross Point in the church, the local church. God's actually charged me because of you. I mean, that's what God can do through a group of people that are all in. I mean, it's pretty cool. There's a book that I just started reading. I'm hardly into it. And I want to read for you something, the very first phrase in the foreword, because it just really got me, because I'm like, this is very much what I've experienced. Here's what it says. It says, blessed is the one who gets to devote his life to something bigger than himself and to find himself surrounded by friends who share his passion. And then the writer, Andy, who writes this, says, in this way, I have been disproportionately blessed. Man, I feel that way. I hope you feel that way. And I want you to know that as you engage and dive in this community known as the local church, you can say, blessed is the one. Man, I'm so blessed to devote my life to something bigger and to find myself surrounded by friends who share this passion. And man, I'm so disproportionately blessed. And that's the church right there. That's what Jesus invites us into. Next weekend, we've got our celebration weekend for Here to There initiative. If you've been a part of this over the last 6 weeks, I really hope you'll be a part of this. We're going to be sharing stories and what God's doing. We're going to talk about, revealing what we've done as a community, what God's done through us. And part of what's cool about this is everybody who's participated, they've devoted themselves to something bigger than themselves. I get overwhelmed when I see people do that. It's crazy. When people share that passion. So if you're not yet a part of it, there's still an opportunity to be a part of that. You can, if you haven't done a commitment card and you're interested in being a part of it, we're still receiving them. We've had a number of commitments come in this week. It's been a really good week. We've been really encouraged. So you can do that and be a part of the ground floor of what God's doing through this. Now, in a moment, I'm going to pray. And this might be a moment of clarity for some of us as we just have a moment to kind of talk to God. And this might be a moment where some of us just go, Jesus, I'm interested in this. I'm ready to kind of deny myself, say, okay, I'm going to stop following my way. I'm actually ready to follow you and be a Christian. I'll make you my Savior and leader. And Jesus, he talked about believing, but he never really talked about like, hey, let me just get a free bus pass to heaven one day. Like that was the main goal. I mean, believing is important, and that's ultimately, the end goal that we get. But and believing is a part of following. But Jesus' invitation was always just, would you follow me? Would you follow me into a whole new way of living? And you may not be ready to do that at this point yet, which is, if that's the case, that's totally cool. For you, your next step might be continue to just hang in here, like to continue to show up, to be curious, all right? That actually might be your next step this next week. Just say, hey, I'm going to show up next weekend, all right? That's what this place is about. Some of us have made that decision. And your opportunity right now is to say, okay, God, am I aligned with what you're doing? Is my why aligned with the purpose that you've called me to? In my relationships, in my job, and wherever my what is. And how much am I actually being driven by that why? And so that's one of our next steps as well. In fact, let's pray together. Let's bow our heads and before I pray, I just want to invite you to talk to God in this moment. And this might be your opportunity to begin relationship with God. Remember, Jesus said, whoever wants, and you might be saying, God, that's me. I want to follow you. I want to begin a relationship with you. And for those of us who are perhaps making that decision right now, that's all it takes. Just say, Jesus, I'm ready. I'm in. I want to begin to follow you. I want to have that kind of purpose. And God, I pray that as we receive you in this moment, that you would receive us. For others of us, this might be a moment to evaluate our lives in light of that why. Maybe you've already made that decision, and right now is a moment to say, okay, God, help me be more aligned with it. Help me be more fueled by it, stronger. Help me to be more focused. Whenever I get to that what this week, whether it's my family, my group of friends, my place of work, help me to be in my what with a brand new sense of why that actually leads to significance and meaning and purpose that's not found anywhere else. It's only found in you. In fact, Father, thank you so much that you came to bring us life that we can really live and experience to the fullest. Life that's so much bigger than what we would have in our own. Thank you for choosing people like us. Whoever wants. Amen. So in the spirit of whoever wants, after I talk, when we do songs, we had a song a moment ago that was like a sit and listen. After I talk, this one's not for entertainment or to settle. This is actually a moment for us to continue to talk to God. And maybe, to let some of what we're processing sink deeper into our souls. So, and especially this song. This song's actually called Made for More. So we're going to sing this. I invite you to stand with us. And as we do that, just allow that to happen. But perhaps some things God's stirring to sink deeper and deeper into your spirit as we sing.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Take a moment to follow our podcast on your preferred platform, and be sure to download our app to stay informed on everything happening here at Crosspoint. And if you like what you heard today, don't hesitate to share it with a friend that might need to hear it too.